A look at Goblins Go Boom. I think before we start anything off, if we could go around and have a little intro from everyone.
Sure. I'm Shane. I was the writer for the game.
I'm Faith. I handle all of the environment art and the VFX for the game.
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm the lead gameplay programmer for our game.
I'm Eddie. I'm the level designer and combat designer.
I'm James, and I am systems and mechanics designer and main rock placer.
Big job.
Huge job, yeah.
So I guess we should start off with someone maybe giving us the elevator pitch. What's your game?
Oh, this one's going to go straight to me then.
Rock placer.
Goblins Go Boom is a boomer shooter-esque movement shooter. It's a cutesy slapstick aesthetic. So you play as our Goblin Rubble, and you got to navigate your way through a cave-like dungeon and destroy rock-like enemies. And you have with you a staff, which gives you access to an ancient magic with multiple elements, which you can then use to destroy enemies. And they also give you access to movement abilities to move around the arenas and move between different arenas as well.
Oh, cool. What kind of movement abilities? Like, I'm a bit obsessive with movement in games. What we got?
Oh, yeah. So, Jack, do you want to say?
We've got rocket jumping from your Quakes, from your Team Fortress 2s. We've got grappling hooks. We've got air strafing, bee hopping, all sorts. Mainly built off of the Source Engine games. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to really replicate that to get our full movement shooter feel to it.
Cool. So the first proper question was going to be, what's the inspiration for the game? But I think we're already going in there, right?
Yeah, it was definitely, that kind of thing we wanted to reminiscent of the Halos, the Quakes, the Team Fortress 2, the Counter-Strike Source. We wanted to kind of bring a kind of older genre and make it modern again. We wanted to try and make fans that like those type of games, but also like a younger audience, maybe Fortnite, they can do a lot of things at once. They're really good, like building and moving around. Bring them into the genre as well in like a environment that isn't like necessarily gory or like violent. So that's kind of the inspiration of where we wanted to go with the game.
So quite a lofty goal, bringing older and younger gamers together in one glorious shooting arena.
From how EXPO's gone, there's been like a few younger kids that have played that have really done really well. So
what about the oldies?
Yeah, I think they, for the most part, they've obviously, it's a little bit different. So it's more like, they're more used to like Doom, whereas like this has a lot of like vertical movement and fast pace. So I think they got a bit caught out by like how fast paced it is, but the feeling of it being like a boomer shooter, I think really like kind of hit home with them a lot.
Cool. So are you hoping that they might level up a little bit while they're playing?
I think everyone hopes that, right? Everyone wants players to get better at their game over time, but I think our game really does like allow that to happen because the upgrade system isn't required. So a player can just use their skills to get through. So it gives the player that feeling of like actually leveling up. Cool.
Do we have any favorite parts of making the game?
I mean, for me, I've always loved movement shooters as a whole. I've loved going through and messing around and really trying to break the movement, but like it not necessarily in ways the developers intended, but being able to sort of reverse engineer and actively set out to include those mechanics in our gameplay has been a really, really fun part of developing.
Yeah, cool. Anyone else? Any other like really fun parts while making the game?
I just think being able to work with the team has been amazing. Obviously, it's quite a big group for a student team, so we had to make sure we did really careful organisation, but everyone's been so on board. We ended up with disciplinary heads to make sure everything was organised. Yeah, exactly. And I think just we've really felt the love for the game from everyone in the team, and I think that passion really shows in the final product. Every time we come in for our supersized studio practices, everyone's, laughing, making jokes, and it feels like it's just fun. It's just coming in, making a game with your mates. And I think that atmosphere really, really does show in the final product. So.
Yeah, cool. It's also something last year, we were the same team last year, we just added a few more people. And we wanted to like implement Goblins into our game last year, but didn't quite fit in very well. And the whole time we were making that game, it was like, next year we can make that
Goblins
game.
On the brain.
And we were really looking forward to making the game. So like we're making a game that we wanted to make, as well as something we want people to enjoy playing. And it's just something that we think is really fun as a team. And it's like Faith said, it's very like, obviously it's very professional, but it is very like personal. We have personal relationships. We know each other really well. We have like good workplace kind of banter. So it's just it's a nice experience overall. It's just working like with your friends and people that you actually genuinely enjoy being around.
Yeah. So a long time coming then. Game you've been waiting to make for a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
We tried to shoehorn goblins into our second year pitch for the game, and Phoebe went, how is this sort of relevant to the setting?
I remember that. I was with Phoebe for that.
Yeah.
So we've had it on our minds, I think, for the entirety of second year. So now that we've finally got our hands on working on the project, on the little guys. Yeah.
You got there in the end.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you think like working with friends is a good idea? It's a big question, this one. Take your time. Working with friends, good idea?
I think it's best because obviously our second year teams were randomly allocated to a degree. So a few of us knew some people in the team. There were little groups of 2 people that would know each other. But I think that actually ended up working the best, where we didn't know each other initially and then became friends. And then our third year has been, working with friends. I think instead of choosing the game, if we'd been able to choose who we worked with in second year, it might not have worked so well for all of us. So having it randomly selected and then becoming working with friends through going through all of second year together. I think that works well for us. Yeah.
I think our team's also just very mature people. So, when obviously all friends have disagreements and but it hasn't been like personal attacks, anything like that. We all know we're all adults. We give our opinions and we just take, like, everyone takes feedback really well. Yeah. So, like, while working with friends can sometimes be like a double-edged sword in for all of us, because everyone's so kind of on the same page for a lot of stuff, and we have good communication with our team. For the most part, most of those problems don't really arise, and when they do, we are able to like sort them out as adults. Yeah. So it kind of, it alleviates that kind of awkwardness.
I think that's one of the key things is because this is a game that we've really wanted to make for quite a while. Yeah. Even though we have become like a quite close-knit group of friends, the studio practices they're just evolved into hanging out. Like, we are friends and we are having a good time, but we are still like really putting our hearts into this game that we really want to make. So I think it's kind of helped us avoid being like unprofessional practices.
And that is one of the dangers of uniting behind friendships rather than like a game idea, for instance. And like we've already said, you were waiting to make this one for a while. So did you come across any like major obstacles, any like major challenges whilst finally getting to make your Goblin game?
I think the biggest thing we encountered that we all had to work together on was optimization. It's obviously a big game, and there's a lot of levels. And so when we're getting to the end and all of the assets started pouring in, we realized that, this is gonna start chugging if we don't do something about it. And so it ended up being a little bit of everyone putting in work, but mainly me, Jack and James, we were, adding in light culling and then full scene culling, static mesh LODs, going through like every texture. There's probably like 6 different layers of things that we've optimized now at this point. Yeah. But I think no one panicked. We just went, it's okay. There's plenty of stuff out there that we can use to overcome this. And instead of panicking, we all just communicated well, and I think we overcame that really without any issues. Yeah.
A lot of the problems I think were like mainly discipline based as well. So like for me, for example, I'm the writer for our game, and we wanted to make a very fast paced game so that it was like, how do we get dialogue in without slowing the players down, right? That was like my personal problem, was like figuring out a way to deliver the story to the players without like slowing them down too much. And then we had like other art problems.
Wait, before we move on, how did we do that?
Well, the way we did that was we added a mechanic in our game that allowed you to essentially bonk the companion who's in the staff, and you can shut the dialogue up at any time you want. But the dialogue isn't necessarily tutorial, it's just lore. So it's not something that you need to complete the game, but it's something that if you want to, you can listen to. So it's kind of, cool. If you want to stop, you can, but you don't have to. And then obviously like other problems we had, I think, were like mainly like some of the artists struggled with version control. So we had to like help them.
I've never heard that before.
I know. World first. So we had to go and help them with Fort, make sure they weren't breaking things when they pushed. So I think a lot of disciplines had like their own like mini problems, but like I wouldn't say there was like major overall game problems. Like there were a few bugs here and there, like lighting, like Faye said, but like they weren't like massive issues. Not really.
Not really.
Yeah, I'd say to like jump off what you said, the like disciplinary issues with due to our team composition, some of us had to remain quite T-shaped and learn new bits. We didn't have an animator on audio, assigned student, for example, so 2 of us had to fully almost start from square one with those and build our skills in any way we knew, because we still wanted certain parts that would only allow for the game if we had those disciplines in. So making sure that we learn new things along with our already allocated tasks was definitely a big hurdle to get over.
Anyone change direction and picking up a new route?
I mean, did the animations for our enemies and first person in our game, but from doing that, I discovered that I quite enjoy doing animation and procedural programming. So for getting the certain enemies that have insect like legs movement, that was done programmatically, and I discovered I really enjoy doing that. So I look forward to doing that in future projects.
Not many people say those words. I'm not saying it's a bad thing or anything, just I don't think a lot of people go into that kind of area. So lean into that. Might get work that way.
One of our artists that not on the panel did most of the music for our game. I'm not sure the program they used, but they
BandLab, I think it was BandLab.
They made most of the music in our game as well. So like that wasn't something they was particularly like specializing in. They just wanted to do it as like to try, and I think they ended up really enjoying that as well. So
interesting.
Yeah,
I think they'll definitely go on to do some more of that. They said they want to just keep improving and honing those skills, because it adds a lot having audio to a game.
For sure. And also, I think as any kind of creative, when you have other areas that you're really interested in and you put your time into, you can kind of have one that's work and one that's fun, and just keep creative juices kind of like flowing.
Definitely.
So how would you feel about maybe taking this game to the next level? Is that something you'd think of, or do you want a new challenge now?
It's something that we've discussed as a team multiple times before, but just due to the makeup of our team and what we're all planning to do next, it's really difficult to plan ahead for the future of this game when we've all got so many different things going.
Yeah.
But I know that Jack and Eddie want to do a couple of edits to what we currently have.
Okay.
I want to fix some egregious collision issues that I've spotted while having people play at EXPO. So a little bit more towards the game, but as a team, sadly, as much as a lot of us really would like to continue working on it, it's just not on the cards.
Sometimes it's like the logistics of it, like with Launchpad, for example, you need to stay up here, and it's like
you need less than 10 people as well, which obviously we've got more than.
So like it's more like the logistics. I think everyone wants to continue it. Like in an ideal world, we'd love to, but like logistically, it's like if we can or not, and we haven't quite fully decided. But I think it's up in the air.
It could be something we put onto Steam, for example. We do some more tweaks and then put it onto Steam and then leave it from there. I don't think it's something we would continue developing for a long time, just because, as Shane said, logistically we're all sort of going to be branching off doing our own things, I think.
Yeah, it's one of the sad things. When things come to an end,
especially now we've become friends.
And,
definitely.
So in an ideal world, if you had money and had time, would you carry on with this game then?
I think most of the team would like to, but it would be a situation where we'd probably like redo the whole game.
Start again?
Yeah, because we've kind of made a vertical slice. And building onto it, like we need to put stuff before it, and then the starting point for the player would change. So it'd be easy to like restart. And obviously at the moment it's only on mouse and keyboard, and we've had a lot of people say they'd like to play on controller. And if we wanted to make it on controller, we'd need to completely like change the systems and everything. So we would probably just do a full restart of the game if we did it again. So it would be a fun like way to like redesign it and reimagine it, but it would have a lot more features and things as well. So it'd probably just be better to just start from scratch and go again.
So has this scratched your Goblin itch, or are we going to see more Goblin games from all of you in the future?
I don't think a Goblin itch can ever really be scratched. I think the great thing about our team is like we've always really kind of like enjoyed the setting of the world, and expanding on that would always be like a really fun idea to do. And I've really enjoyed working with these little guys.
Once the Goblin's in your brain, it's not going to leave.
We all, as a team, have days where we feel like we're goblins as well, so we really relate, to the game. So no thoughts, head empty,
So I guess speaking of head empty, in terms of things you've learned this year, if you could take a moment, if you could think about like the major the one major thing that you've learned from this year? It's cool. If you need to do 2 or 3, by all means do. I'm terrible at just distilling things into one. But one major lesson you've learned from this year, or 2 or 3. Take a moment. What do you think that is?
I can think of one. It might not be my best one, but I can think of one. In order to, because obviously art files, they can get big. ZBrush high polys, substance painter files. We decided to have a separate repository just for the artwork, which was definitely beneficial as we ended up with 40 gigabytes of artwork. I don't know how people managed to push that, but that was great, but it meant that a lot of the art team members didn't end up working in the main team repo as soon as they should. So when it came time to move assets over, it would always be, Faith, can you move this over? Because you're already working. I was already working in Engine on the VFX bits, and so those artists never really got to grips with the idea of feature branches, which is something we used, and merging things in, because they would just be working on their own branch in the art repo, just putting the stuff there where it's safe, and Faith would move it over, and if there are any merged conflicts, Faith would deal with it, and so I think it would have been really beneficial. I still think that was a great idea because, like I said, 40 gigs of stuff. But I think getting people more confident with that early on was definitely beneficial. Would have been beneficial, because in the short term, it's like, oh, well, it saves time because I'm moving it over, so I can make sure it goes in correctly, and I wouldn't want to have to go through with so drag that on top of that. Painful. That. But in the long term, it meant that a lot of my time would end up being taken up with moving stuff over, and they would never learn those crucial skills that they'll need in industry. So I think starting with that earlier, it wasn't game breaking, but I think starting with that earlier would have just meant the cogs, turned a bit more smoothly, and we would have got some art bits in sooner rather than later as well, which helps with the art, really helps with the vision when it's in. So I think that's one thing that we definitely could have done.
So what's the way around that? Surely there's like a hybrid way of working that makes sense, because 40 gigs of art, it's a lot to be moving around a lot. But getting your artists more technically savvy and comfortable with version control is also really essential. So separate 40 gigs of art in one place, but then just get them feeding bits through regular, just get them more comfortable.
Even if it's just little commits, like, oh, well, I just added in one mesh, kind of stuff like that. We ended up doing a bit of a big GitHub workshop when we realized that we were kind of falling into the trap of one person moving everything over. And I think that really helped. And even if people were just like writing down the instructions so that they then could do it at home as well. And we reminded them, just reach out to a programmer if something's like red and flashing. I still think the separate repo is a good thing, but I think the fix is having people move things over little and often, so they just get used to that pattern of opening a branch, dumping something in, merging it in, and getting rid of it, as that was the feature branch sort of methodology that we wanted to follow. And just doing that, even if it was just once a week, and then
just a little coaching.
Exactly, just little low, things like adding meshes which aren't going to cause level conflicts and stuff like that, so they don't have to worry about merge conflicts early on. Just the practice of getting things early. And I've noticed that they're trying to teach the first years to do that now. I've been setting up a lot of repos for first years.
Really? You get all the fun stuff, optimization, version control, teaching first year's version control.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of going around and going, so move it into this folder, close it, go to
there.
Click
that.
But, but I think that the fact that they're teaching that now earlier on is brilliant. And it will hopefully mean that when the artists get to team working, they'll be able to move that over seamlessly. They'll know it nice and early on, and that can be avoided in the future. So
Cool.
I think another key thing was really nailing down early on exactly what it is that we wanted to make. I think was like hugely beneficial. We weren't sort of changing our minds about what the game was going to be halfway through. Spent a lot of time really early on, like all together as one group, doing like a lot of ideation. Really like taking notes, figuring out exactly what it was we wanted to make early on, so that when we did get into Engine, we kind of hit the ground running. We were able to just kind of get on with it a lot of the time.
So spent more time planning, and then
like,
had a more seamless kind of ride into production.
Getting a prototype early, and like just getting those like design pillars and just sort of mood boards and stuff down like really early, so that we know sort of as soon as we actually open up the engine, this is what I'm making, this is how I want it to be, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even need many, in concept you do lots of iterations because the team so firmly had an idea of what they wanted. So if we're making a new enemy, I would do one sketch of what I thought everyone wanted, and everyone would go, yep, great, because everyone knew exactly what they want. Or if they wanted iterations, they go, no, we want it like this, and everyone was so unanimous. So it made other processes so much quicker because everyone knew exactly in their minds. They'd go, no, that's not it. We want this.
It's not the game.
Yeah, you wouldn't need to do 50 thumbnails to work out what you wanted the character to look like because everyone's got an exact picture of what they wanted in their head.
How do you think you ended up with that such a clear distillation of the game, like early on? How do you get to that point? Have you figured that out yet? We need to write this down.
We had so obviously in our second year we had to do a pitch presentation for like worlds that we created, and the world we used for this game was Jack's presentation from the second year.
Okay.
So we had a PowerPoint that already had like a lot of ideas on it, so that we could pull from. And then over the summer from second year to third year, it was a lot of talking about the game, how it would look, what we want to do with it, what games look like it. So we had a lot of time to like build up references and like a library of games we want it to look like. And then we had a lot of chats and communication about. We want it to do this. We want this enemy to look like this. We want to use goblins in this kind of thing. This is what the narrative is. So everyone knew and everyone was on the same page. So when someone had an idea, it'd be like, yes, like that's what we're thinking too. So it was just it was a lot of communication, finding references, and just keep like talking about the game like non-stop over the summer.
It really was a long time coming.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because like that's kind of how we decided on what game we wanted to do. Like in second year when we did that pitch process, we were torn between two games, and it was Eddie's World, which we made last year, and then Jack's one. So we were like, if we stay as the same team, we can just make that one next year. So and that's what ended up happening basically. So
okay, fair enough. So there is no short answer to that because it took
Just
you
do
ages.
goblins.
Thinking about it.
So any other people wanted to add any points for like major things learned this year?
I would say for me, the thing I learned the most is how to communicate with other disciplines. I'm not super knowledgeable like in engine. I couldn't go in engine and like program stuff. I'm as T-shaped as I can be in the sense of I could talk to a program, but like, this is what I would like. Are you able to make it for me? And then it's like, can we do this with like event-based stuff or whatever? And I can have I've accrued enough knowledge to a basic degree to be able to tell them what I want or what I'd like to be able to have, and then for them to be able to like explain to me how it would be made, and then like we can work out how it would be implemented. Because obviously like a lot of my work is more out of engine, and there's like the narrative side of it, and like. So I'd say that's kind of the thing I've learned the most, is just being able to find the confidence in myself as well as like be able to communicate with everyone else and just be like, I'm stuck. Can you help me with this thing? And then like everyone's like, yeah, and they just and it's not like not that I was ever scared of it, but it's like I learned to not be scared of being condescended to. And it's just like everyone's trying to teach you, So you ask someone like, I don't know how to do this thing. Can you help me? And they're like, yeah, I'll help you. And it's just like learning to ask for help and like when you're out of your depth.
So can we call that T-shaped communication?
I guess T-shaped communication. Yeah, make myself sound better. Yeah.
I just made a new term.
Yeah.
To add on to that, I had to do. I led most of the efforts for all the set dressing and level. So I made some slides for any artists that were free, and I found a lot with those slides. As much as I rewrote them a few times to make sure everyone understood, I still had to get up and go answer questions about various bits of it, and it was difficult for me to try and learn where everyone's knowledge gaps were. Because the way I used Unreal to put all my set dressing in is completely different than the way some of the artists used Unreal to put their set dressing in, or anything they have to put in. So we ended up completely changing the lighting because one of the artists was better at lighting and taught me lighting through that. However, I had to spend a good 30 minutes with them teaching them how to put down my floors. And it was really fascinating to learn and really difficult to learn exactly what people know about the engine. Because I know different things than what the artists know, and they know different things than what I know, and it's communicating between us really helped us learn different things about the other disciplines that will allow us to work better with those disciplines in the future.
And I guess getting rid of assumptions, like assumptions of people's knowledge. I think that's one of the key things in having clearer communication, because if you just assume people know all of the things that you know, then you talk on at a higher level about a bunch of things that are really niche, but you don't think they're niche because they're your world, and you end up not really communicating. So taking a step back and trying to kind of figure out what it is people know so you can communicate clearly.
Yeah, that's kind of like the point I was like trying to make when I was speaking. It's like you don't want to assume everyone knows what you're talking about. So but you also don't want to make it sound like you're trying to explain to them like they're an idiot. So but because we are such a close team, I think everyone feels comfortable enough to say like, can you explain it to me like a bit more simply? You know? And that's like, for me personally, I don't know everyone else, but that's something I've learned, that it's like, it's okay to be like, I'm not quite, I don't understand, can you explain it like a bit more simply? But I think everyone like is good at that as well, and we all have the confidence to say to each other like, you know, I don't get what you're saying. Yeah,
that's crazy valuable.
It is, definitely.
It's kind of like a little bit of humbleness. And being okay with people not thinking that you know everything all of the time, because no one can do that. But it's really hard to just drop that a little bit and just be like, I'm sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I think we all like, to a degree, we wanted it to be like, just because I'm the writer, it doesn't mean all my decisions about writing are the best, right? So it's like, I put it in the channel, it's like, anyone give me feedback, and if they're like, that line seems like it doesn't read right, I've like, okay, why is that? You know, have I written it in a weird way?
So investigate rather than get defensive.
Exactly. You know, and it's the same with the artists. You know, like we're not artists. I couldn't give them like great art feedback, but I might be able to say like, oh, it looks weird, but I can't really tell you why. But I think it just looks a bit off, or it feels like it doesn't fit with the scene. And it's like, they're not going to be like, well, you're wrong, because you know, like, and we all have the confidence to do that with each other. Is be like, you know, does this look right? We had like specialism passes with other specialisms. You know, so it's like when the art's done, it's like get someone else to look at it. So it's not just like, because like you can always be biased towards your own work, right?
Especially if you've looked
Echo
at it
chambers.
for hours and
exactly.
hours.
So, and we all wanted to make a good game. Like we were making it for us, like as like
and your target audience,
but more for them.
Like, really
because we wanted to make it. But like, you know, we're very cognizant of the fact we're making it for players, and we didn't want it to be, well, we like that, so we're going to make it that way. You know, so like that's why we wanted the extra eyes on it. You know, and if anyone externally playtested, like, oh, this looks weird. Like I think we had a situation where someone said something about the art during playtesting where it looked a bit different,
not cohesive enough. We went back and we went, you know what, we're right, let's do that lighting pass to sort of bring everything together, and we actually ended up retexturing stuff a few weeks before demo day, because we were like, you know what, they were right, we do need to change this so it's not obvious which artist did which section. It should all look like it was
seamless.
Exactly.
Just like biting the bullet and just kind of going, you're right, have a look back, see what we did, learn from it, and kind of continue on with it.
Definitely.
Oh, cool. I mean, it sounds like a lot of really progressive, useful stuff that you've learned, generally for this game, but actually like wider scope going forward, going into the industry. These are crazy valuable skills, and they're hard to teach, so you learned them through experience. So that's cool. As for the industry, I don't know how much you've got your finger on the pulse and stuff, but are you looking at anything in the industry currently, and it's kind of exciting, any directions that you think are interesting and exciting, or is it more of the same?
I am getting really excited from a VFX perspective with all of the new softwares coming out that's making things easier and easier. Obviously, Houdini will be the standard, but also Houdini is
eventually
horrible. But having some softwares come out, there's EmberGen, which is out, and they're also making a version called FluidGen, and then there's GeoGen, which allows for real-time fluid and fire simulations, and seeing technology. Obviously technology, it's a new industry, so technology is advancing so quickly, and seeing all of those new stuff come in, especially from art, photogrammetry, for rocks and stuff like that, and even, it's obviously taboo, but some artists using AI to speed up those mundane processes like retopology.
Hey, if we can make retopology go faster, then that's a good thing, right?
100%. Definitely seeing those technological leaps, definitely in the art scene, is super exciting. And as well, hearing about how studios are genuinely doing that. There's some studios that still use Houdini, but it's becoming more of a 50-50 split between Houdini and those easier and more user-friendly softwares like EmberGen and stuff like that, and seeing how that and Blender becoming more popular, especially with indie studios. That's really exciting to see, I think. that's very art based. I don't know if it's
Any other trends?
I'm personally really excited for like what new wave of like indie studios are going to be able to put out with the advancement of UE5 and other bits. Making realistic games has never really been easier, and like that access and that floor at which indie teams are able to start creating games. I'm really looking forward to the new ideas that can crop up from that. So from what would normally only be accessible by AAA studios, those technologies that indie teams can get their hands on and really mess about with. I'm really excited for the new ideas that can crop up out of that.
This was a stealth question. I wasn't sure if I was going to ask or not, but we're going there now. So like I've noticed the industry seeming to change in a slightly different way in terms of structure. Like a lot of the bigger AAA studios seem to be not doing as well as they used to, whereas lots of really smaller indie studios are having overnight successes. And it feels to me like there's something of a balance tipping going on. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think players are starting to recognize that generally they're recognizing industries that, like, it's in some cases are kind of putting out what works for them, but that's I believe like in demographics of gamers, they really want to get something new at this point, and they're willing to go to these indie studios which are really willing to offer that. And these experimental new ways of playing have been really what players have been after. And with AAA studios wanting to emulate that indie feel a lot of the time now, it's really starting to show. And I just with indie, I just really think that's where the big ideas are going to come from, especially.
I think there's a little bit of trust that's being lost in the big companies as well, obviously with the news of the layoffs and things like that, but also indie studios are so much more willing to open playtesting has become so much more common, and people know that indie studios will actually listen to the individual's feedback and you potentially come up with new games from it and stuff like that. And I think people are realizing that these little groups of 1 to 3 to 6 people, those companies, people obviously always want to see their suggestions end up in the game, and I think that is partly it. But they're realizing that indie studios are way more likely to listen to their actual player base. So I think that's partially it.
Yeah, there's so much talent that's now been launched into like finding those indie jobs and wanting to create what they know that they can do that they might not have been able to before during restrictions.
So actually what you're saying is the future's quite bright. I know there's been a lot of press about the things going on in the games industry at the minute, but it's easier for smaller teams to make more interesting, bigger, like more AAA feeling games. And audiences are more interested in fresher ideas and smaller teams. So not necessarily the doom and gloom that we've been hearing.
I think it's also like indie companies have the ability to take more risks. You've got a AAA studio that they're going to be advertising. People expect it to be like a commercial success, so they don't want to take a risk that might not work out, because if it doesn't, all the like lights on them.
Millions down the drain.
So, but like an indie studio, they might be able to take that risk, and like they might not have publishers pushing back against them on taking those risks. So they have the ability to like gamble a little bit, and a lot of the time, like they're people that play games, that are making games, so like they know what they want from a game, so we'll put that in, and they can take that risk, and when it works out, it's great. But when it doesn't work out, it's not like people are a bit more lenient with it, I think, because it's like they're an indie company, they want to try something new. But like a AAA company, I don't think they have that luxury to really try those.
No, we're brutal. We're brutal with them.
So
with indies as well, a lot of them have now been like really pushing for early access titles. So sometimes they've got eyes on it about a year before it's meant to release. So they're getting tons of feedback. They're acting on all of it, and they're not afraid to admit, we don't know exactly what we're doing with this specific bit. And then they can get loads of feedback on that and really hone down what they want. While AAA companies tend to say 3 days early access if you pre-order our game. And it doesn't feel like early access, it just feels like you're playing their finished game a little bit early.
And you're paying 30 quid more for it.
You don't get, input on that early access. But with indies, as much as like individually you might not have the most, you and a couple of your friends who all think the same thing, post some feedback, it might get changed. It might actually be something that impacts the final product. And indies just aren't afraid to admit that sometimes they're a bit wrong.
Yeah. Cool. So I think we have to wrap it up there, guys. It's been really lovely talking to you. I wish you all the best in the future. If you have any final closing comments, do them now in the next 5 seconds.
Play Goblins Go Boom on.
Plug all of your places right now.
We have a Goblins Go Boom Twitter page, and I'm on LinkedIn, but I can't remember the URL. I'm not gonna
Okay.
I'm on ArtStation, just under my name, Faith Hamill, and the same LinkedIn as well.
Find me on LinkedIn under Jack Allsop.
Same LinkedIn and Twitter, Eddie Harbison.
Again, LinkedIn, Twitter, James Percival, sometimes James J. Percival if I was feeling fancy that day. All my links are there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Awesome.